The Unwanted, Chapter 16. The night was cool. My uncle had watered the garden, and the dampness from the ground saturated the air. From between the branches, the sound of a bird's wing fluttering in its sleep tickled the night. To Jimmy and me, the sound became the panting of some vicious monster lurking behind the bushes. We walked forward in the dark, holding each other's hand. The lantern burned weakly in front of me, showing just a few feet of ground. I could hear the sound of my cousins quarreling at their dinner table, and their mother trying to quiet them. When we came to the heap of dead leaves, I searched for my dog's remains, while my brother stood next to me, holding the lantern in both hands. It did not take me long to find Lulu, half buried under the leaves. In the flickering light, I saw her lying on her side with her mouth open. Even in death, she had a look of surprise on her face. One of her eyes was smashed cruelly into her head, darkened with blood. Blood also was visible from other orifices, running down her body like black paint. Her deformed paw was pulled across her snout as though she tried to protect herself from the assault. The rest of Lulu was wet with some unexplained fluid, possibly her urine or her vomit, or even the water my uncle had sprayed on his garden. I picked her up with both hands, ignoring the slime my fingers came in contact with. Death had kissed her long and hard with its frozen lips, and her body was stiff. I held her in my arms, hoping the warmth of my body could bring her back to life. Ignoring my brother's presence, I wept uncontrollably. With Lulu in my arms, I walked toward the front lawn. I had chosen a burial site for Lulu, a strip of land under the cherry tree overlooking the street. My brother followed me without speaking. As soon as I picked up a small shovel to dig into the soft earth, he took a spade and began to help me. An unexpected noise behind the bush startled us both. "Who is it?" I shrieked out in fright. From behind the wall that separated our property from the one next door emerged a boy about my age, hiding his hands in his pockets. In the dark, I could see the outline of his face, directing a curious glance in our direction. Nobody. He stepped out into the light, and I could see him. Most of his face was hidden under long strands of black hair. An extra large t-shirt wrapped around his thin body and extended down to his knees like a muumuu. He was barefoot. Cocking his head to one side, the boy asked, "What are you two doing?" "Burying Kian's dog," my brother answered. "Really? Can I help?" Jimmy looked at me, and I nodded my approval to the boy. He was the only friendly person I had encountered in a long time, and the urge for a friendship prompted me to want to accept him. "Let's go open the gate," I told my brother. The boy waved his hands to decline my offer and said, "No need to. I'll just climb over the wall." He continued matter-of-factly, "I did this 1,000,000 times before your family moved here, usually to steal your uncle's guavas." He proceeded to scale the tall wall like a monkey. He leaped over the barbed wires on top, dangling in the air for a moment before jumping to the ground on my side. "How do you know that man is my uncle?" I asked him as he got up, brushing the grass from his clothes. "Everybody knows everything around here. Besides, I have been watching. I saw those kill your dog." Tears once again threatened to blur my vision. I made no comment to his remark and resumed my digging. The boy took the small shovel from my brother's hand and began to scoop aside the grass. His digging, much like his wall climbing, was a lot faster than mine. I could feel his intense gaze silently studying the two of us. His almond-shaped eyes, like two black holes dotted with fire, sparkled on his face. "What's your name?" I asked him. "I am called Zui." "You are Kian, correct? I heard Miss San call your name earlier in school. I don't know if you remember seeing me there, but we are in the same class. I sat by the window. Nice poem, by the way. Again, I made no comment, and he continued. Anyhow, nice to meet you. Likewise. This is Jimmy, my brother. Jimmy looked up with a grin. Zui leaned closer to me and whispered, For the son of a capitalist, you sure know a lot about the communists. Where did you learn the teachings of Chairman Ho? Wait, don't tell me. I don't want to know. He paused, then switched to a more sympathetic tone. Don't feel bad about your cousins. They're a bunch of jerks. Nobody around here likes your aunt's family either. My dad says that they're definitely low-class minions. Someday, me and my brothers will find a chance to kick their... You are different than them, which I like. If you want to, you and your brother can come over to my house sometimes. I have a dog. He really is a lot of fun. You'll see once you play with him. What's the name of your dog? My brother asked. Goofy? Goofy? My brother repeated, laughing. That's a funny name. Funny name for a funny dog, Zui replied. Now the hole we were digging was deep enough to fit Lulu in. I put the shovel aside and sat on the ground beside her. Taking my time, I touched her one last time before I set her in the soft earth. We watched in silence as the dirt began to cover her little body, bit by bit, until she was out of sight. Zui laid back on the grass to cover the ground above her grave. Thank you very much, I muttered to him. Zui shifted on his feet. I should get going. It's almost curfew time. Don't you want to get some guava before you go? I asked him. No, not tonight. Someone is watching us. Got to go. Good night, and see you in school tomorrow. Oh, Kian, now that you know I am in your class, for heaven's sake, please hang out with me instead of spending all day around the schoolyard by yourself, will you? He rushed through his sentences, and before I had a chance to reply, he leaped over the wall and vanished into the night. As Jimmy and I neared the back door to our house, a thin whistle coming from the foot of my uncle's house stopped us in our tracks. A shadow by a column waved, beckoning me closer. I recognized the petite frame of my aunt's eldest daughter, Moonlight. My earlier experiences with her brothers prompted me to walk away, but my curiosity overcame that impulse. I turned to my brother. Go inside, Jimmy. I'll be right back, I ordered him. Before he could protest, I pushed him through the door and ran over to meet Moonlight. She sat on her buttocks with her legs folded against her chest so that her chin could rest on her knees. The light from the window barely kept her thin body from blending into the surrounding blackness. She coughed slightly, using her hands to cover her mouth in a polite manner. I walked in front of her. What do you want? I asked as aggressively as I could. Nothing, she said. Her lips trembled as she spoke to me. I have been watching you, Kian. I saw you bury your dog. You must feel terrible about what has happened. I want to apologize for my brothers. They were very mean to you earlier this afternoon, weren't they? I didn't know how to answer her. She patted the ground beside her and said, Sit down. I did what I was told. Do you know my name, Kian? She asked. I nodded. Anwei. Yes, but do you know how to say it in English? She asked. I shook my head and she smiled. Her hand stroked my head. Moonlight. Doesn't that sound pretty? Yes, very pretty, I agreed. I want you to call me Moonlight from now on, the way my friends used to, back in college. She said. Her hands returned to cover her lower face, muffling her mouth, so that she spoke as though she had a mouthful of food. I saw a boy with you earlier. Where is he? He went home, I replied. Did he tell you why he didn't steal any guava today? I shook my head. He said someone was watching him. He might have meant you, cousin. Moonlight, she corrected me. Moonlight, I repeated. Did he mention anything about his brothers to you? I decided to be straight with her. He said that someday his brothers will beat your brothers up because everybody thinks your brothers are a bunch of bullies. Moonlight laughed and again ruffled my hair. No kidding. He said that to you? I doubt that would ever happen, though. We've been neighbors for many years, but I never saw those boys start a fight. Why not? I asked. Because, forget it. You are too young to understand. The grown-up emphasis in her voice dismissed me. Try me. I understand lots of things, I said proudly. Oh, yeah? Maybe you can understand, but can you keep a secret? She asked. I nodded and waited impatiently. Be careful, Moonlight warned me. If you speak to anyone of what I am about to tell you, my brothers will come looking for you. And I promise you, you will be reunited with Lulu soon after. Moonlight, I won't tell anyone, I promise. Not even Jimmy, I answered her. All right then, here goes, she began. The story involves that little boy's big brother and me. We have known each other for a long time. His name is Tai Tong. Her head tilted to rest on her knees, and her arms wrapped themselves intimately around her ankles. She looked up to the clear sky and went on in a whisper. We grew up together, Tai and I, and 7 years ago, he began to court me. It's a secret. My family must not know about this. Do you understand? Why not? They don't like for you to date him? I asked her. No, but it's a little more complicated than that, she said. Before the fall of Saigon, his family didn't want him to marry me because they were rich and we were poor. Tai Tong is also their firstborn, so they thought he should get for himself a strong and fertile wife. I am sick with tuberculosis, so that is another reason for his parents to be against the relationship. Now, after the communists took away everything they had, it was my family's turn to look down on his family. She stopped, losing herself in her thoughts. Can anything be done? I asked. I don't know. The fact is, his father held a very high rank in the Republican military. Everyone thinks they have bad resumes, like you people. My dad doesn't want me to get involved with a guilty party like him. It is bad enough that the whole town knows we are related to your family, so it is understandable that I am now forbidden to see him, she said, rubbing her face against the silky fabric of her pants. What is wrong with my family? I asked her. Nothing, Moonlight replied immediately, then added, except that you remind everyone of the past. The odd appearances of you and your brother, and the way your mother has made her money through her association with the foreigners. Everyone in your family is a capitalist. Your father, too, has fought in the Republican Army, I argued. True, but the government knows he was just a low-rank enlistee, working in an office. He never killed anybody in battle. It's not the same. Compared to most people in this town, we belong to what is called the lowest working class in the South. She looked at me through her eyelashes. Listen, I don't make up these rules, so don't waste your time arguing with me. Besides, why should we fight? If the situation were reversed, you would treat us the same way. That's life, Kian. Let's be friends, because I want you to help me. Help you? How? You know Zui Tong. If you hang out with him, you can meet his brother easily. You can give Tai my messages, yes? If I could ask any of my brothers or sisters to help me, I wouldn't trouble myself to ask you, but I know they would refuse. What message? I asked with a pang of nervousness. Right at this moment, I am not sure. Maybe some notes or some presents, that sort of things. I don't know yet, but when I do, will you deliver them for me? She looked at me with hope in her eyes. There was also something else I detected on her face, a sense of hopelessness. I found myself promising her what she needed to hear. Good. She reached out to hug me, and her long black hair fell over my face. Thank you. You are my sweet little bluebird. I will do my best to keep my nasty brothers away from you and Jimmy.